do a quick review and commentary on the Winwing F-15E Strike Eagle throttle handle. You see my base. I've actually got the Orion1 base. So there were some compatibility things between this and the new throttle grips. I'm going to kind of cover that and kind of alleviate if anyone has any concerns. I'll start by saying the shipping from Winwing was actually pretty fast. Would have been here even faster if FedEx's tracking was remotely competent at times. This has, if you're ordering in the United States, it has to have a direct signature, and they were wrong on what day it was arriving. It's packaged pretty well. A little dust on there. It was packaged well. Installation was very easy. I mean, if you've already got an existing base, I had the F-18, excuse me. I had the FA-18C handles. Just involves the removing of 2 screws for each one. And then the removal of the little cable down here, which is there it is. Very simple, very easy to take off. These handles do come with their own screws, so you don't necessarily have to reuse the ones you had on the previous one. Very easy, it has a little slot, goes in there. A little bit like that, and they're installed. The handles themselves feel great. Just like the original with the Orion1, was I think the new base is Orion2 is ABS plastic. The Orion1 was metal. Handles are aluminum, beefy. Pretty sure they're 1-to-1 size. I know in VR they look pretty accurate to the size in VR. Switches are all as you would expect. Works great. This has a couple extra things that the actual F-15E Strike Eagle doesn't have. This is just a button, but this is actually like a 4-way here. So, well, 5-way if you want to consider it. Then it has these 2 buttons on the side. Here's the thing. On the Orion1 base, these 2 buttons on the side and the 4-way portion of this does not work. Doesn't function. Not a big deal. It's not present in the F-15E. Now, if you're buying this handle because you want to have extra functionality and you're bump between planes, just note those won't work. If you're buying it as a kind of 1-to-1 to the F-15, won't be a concern because the press button part of it still works. Even though that feature isn't a part of the F-15E, if you're doing DCS, it's not a part of the early access yet. That pinky switch isn't mapping correctly. And it has no function on this dial, nor, if you were to look at the other side here, the switch for your dispensers. Don't let this fool you. This may look small in my hand. I'm a giant, so it's not a small one by any means. Like I said, it's nice and beefy. Hopefully I'm not scratching on my desk too much. Like I said, the action there, that's all going to be based on your base, your Orion base, but handles themselves, like I said, no issue. The only real issue I had, because for being a tech guy, I can be kind of dense sometimes, and I plugged this in and went into DCS, tried to start mapping stuff out, and most of the stuff just wouldn't map out. It just was not registering. So I went into control panel, went to game controllers, nothing's lighting up. Because I failed to do basics, which was to open up Winwing software, sim shaker, not shim shaker, the sim app for the Winwing gear. And I had to do an update for both the Orion base and for the handle. Once I did those updates, everything registered correctly. So I'll go into the app and I'll show you just what you need to do. And for those curious too, I'll provide a link. I've had a lot of different setups. These mounts right here, I think I got them off of Amazon. I got the pair. Can't remember what the price is. It was less than $100. They work great. So I'll show you guys a quick little clip of that. So let me jump over though to the app. All right, so here is the Sim App Pro. Like I said, make sure if you add this and you have an existing base and you're adding this on, make sure you go in here first. It'll help you out. And then you can do firmware updates if you need to. Might have been updated, but you can update the base and you can update the handles. So make sure you do your firmware updates. You can come back here to test. It'll go through this stuff here. One of the things I found was changing some of the stuff. I had to set the mode, so the Coolie switch right here for DCS, I set it as basically digital instead of analog to pick everything up. Then it mapped correctly for DCS. I did not have a problem with the TDC slew switch, which is this one right here. Everything else was pretty straightforward. Like I said, even though they said this button, they implied that the entire thing wouldn't be functional. But of course, these two side pieces aren't. But this one's functional as a push button. So it still works. So it still would have the function of the actual F-15E. And then, of course, everything else registers. And then, of course, the rest is going to be from the base itself. So if your base is working correctly, it'll work here. So do your firmware updates. If you got to do any calibration, just make sure to go in here and do this. I'm far from an expert, but it'll be a helpful reminder in case you're like me. Like I said, I'm probably the worst tech guy when it comes to troubleshooting stuff. I don't know. I spent probably 2 hours while my MetaQuest Pro, I hadn't used it for a little bit, and I went to plug in the link cable, and it just would not register. Could not find the PC. Troubleshot all this stuff. People were complaining about different firmware updates, different issues with it. Went through all of that, and I have a thing I'll just show you in video. So let me jump over real fast. So I have this thing, plugs into my motherboard, and then I plug it in here, so it's a powered USB hub. And so I was plugging it in, and I kept testing the headset, and come to find out, after trying different updates, doing different things, this hub was not fully seated into the back of the motherboard. The USB-C input on the back of the motherboard, it's a little funky, and it wasn't seated correctly. So to my embarrassment, I spent way too much time troubleshooting that. So just remember, don't overlook the basics. And so in this case, kind of ties back into the app. So here it is with this mount. Like I said, it's a pretty nice setup. The only thing, somewhat of an issue, which you can mitigate it. These little things can stick out depending on its height, can kind of dig into your quads a little bit, especially if you're former offensive lineman slash power lifter with big quads. You can run into that issue sometimes. And there, of course, Don't mind that cable too when I'm actually doing my flight sim. I will put up, but those are the nice little nut buster rubbers. So, but they serve me pretty well. I want to probably make a different video. I did a little mod on those to help out, and it's helped me quite a bit. So back to this, like I said, this thing works great. I've been always impressed by Winwing's quality. Now, if you know me, I actually use, let me grab it here. I use a VKB Gladiator actual flight stick. Not because I have any issue with the Winwing flight stick. In fact, I would like to get one at some point. Love to review it. I use it simply because I got this when I had the X52, Logitech X52, and it was definitely a big step up from there. I got the F-18 or the Orion1 throttle after the fact, and I was happy enough with the flight stick. I didn't feel like I needed to upgrade at the time. I would like to upgrade one, especially with an extension. I just haven't done it yet. So that's that. That's a review, like I said. If you're jumping in the F-15E, I highly recommend if you've got the Orion 1. It's a fairly cheap upgrade. The Hornet throttle will work, but it's definitely laid out a little bit different. Definitely have to be a little more creative with it. It will work, and it's very adequate, but I highly recommend if you're like, I really like to be fairly close to what I'm seeing, especially when I'm in VR, and I think this is a very cheap, very nice upgrade. If you do not have the Orion throttle yet, get it. Like I said, it's, highly recommend it. I mean, night and day difference between the other throttles I've used, and it's always been hugely impressive. So that's and I think probably the other thing I would recommend, like I said, they have their own mounts. Winwing does. I have nothing against their mounts. When I originally got this, I got this back when I had a separate little sim pit setup I'd made out of PVC, and I just decided I need more modularity, and so I started using these. I got these for fairly cheap, but I would recommend, get to Winwing mounts if you want mounts. If you've already got the gear and you want a cheap alternative, like I said, I'll put a link to it. That's it. Thanks. Have a great day.